Welcome to the Collector's Cast. As always, I'm Clint the Collector, Clint Wilson. This is my co-host, Mike Bloski. Say hello to the people, Mike.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here again.
And today we are going to concentrate a little bit on music in the world of collecting. Everybody, or most people, love music. I have met the odd person that says, I don't like music. They're usually a real weird person. If they don't like music of any kind.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No kidding. I think I'm a little bit strange because I like, well, because I'm a little bit strange, but when it comes to music, I like everything. Like, I don't think there's a type of music that I don't like.
Did you enjoy opera ever?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, that's usually the one that stops most people.
Pal, at one point when I lived in Vancouver, I would go to the opera regularly. I had season tickets for the symphony.
Oh,
I really enjoyed it. Yes. And, oh yeah, that's just what I want to say. I'm one of those few people that I like every bit of music, even, well, it's called hip hop now, but is it rap? Is that the right word?
Yeah.
But I even don't mind that, some of it.
Yeah, I guess hip hop is the term now. I don't listen to it a lot, but even that, and you know what? I'll carry that forward a little bit more and say that I like anything that is good, anything that took imagination and skill to put together as a song or a piece of music. I love that. So, you know, I like old country music. A lot of people don't like country music. The old Willie and Waylon and especially Johnny Cash. Love Johnny Cash. Not so big on the new stuff, but that's because I think what it is just radio-friendly pop sung with a southern accent. is kind of what new country is. It is. And it's not much different from the sort of bubblegum rock that you hear. It's just all, you know, it's to get people to listen to on the radio.
Do you think, Clint, that because of the crossover, you have like Taylor Swift, she crosses over to pop music. She was country, and some of the country artists will do pop music as well.
I don't want to get myself in trouble and say that those people aren't artists, but when I see really big propped up pop stars that have, like, it's not just Taylor Swift. I'm sure she's a very talented gal, and yes, she's done a lot for her age. Absolutely, she writes songs, very impressive. But she's got a system behind her of dozens of people making her life go the way it does. It's a little different than a band that just slocks it out every day and night and works hard. And anyway, we're rather than focusing on the success of music, I wanted to talk more about the collecting of it. And one way people collect music today is records is really, really popular. It had a resurgence back in the 90s, actually, vinyl did, but it's even bigger today. We often talk on the show about what's really driving the collecting market and where prices are up. Records is one place where prices are up.
Did I hear correctly when I heard the other day that right now vinyl records are way outselling CDs?
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, and new records. You can go in now. Like I collect the most popular genre, which is classic rock, you know, 60s, 70s, 80s classic rock, mainly, the real vinyl era. And, I don't think it's ever been more popular, even in the days when it was the only, well, there was, you know, back in the days when you had Sam the Record Man and all these giant record stores people would go into. Yes, because it was the media or the medium for listening to music. So everybody bought records, but now it's just as big. And you could go in and find those same records, whether it be Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, Jethro Tull, Aqualung, the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's, all these great titles, and they make them brand new again. They reproduce them. And we've talked about reproductions versus originals on this show a lot when it comes to signs and different kind of collectibles. But the thing about records, for me personally, yes, it always feels a little better to find an original from the 70s and the cover has that great look and it's worth a lot more. But the new reproductions, they say they're indistinguishable to listen to, and they really are. They're done well, but I find that they just don't feel the same myself. And I collect both. I have over 200 albums right now, and I'm always building. And primarily I have original, when we're talking 33 vinyl here, we're talking record albums, not the little 45s, not the 78s. If you're collecting old records and you see a pile of 78s at a garage sale, I don't want to say keep on walking, because maybe that's your thing and you have an old 78 player, but that's very niche. You're not going to buy those for a song and sell them for a lot of money. The reason you're going to get them cheap is because nobody's buying them. So know the difference. 33, which stands for 33 revolutions per minute. I think it's 33 and a third, actually. Yep. It goes 100 times around every 3 minutes, is the popular medium for albums, and still very collectible. So I do a lot of shopping at there's a local store here. We're in Chilliwack, British Columbia, which is about an hour out of Vancouver, and it's called Chilliwack's Records with a W-A-X, very clever on the end. And that's where I do a lot of my record hunting. But these record stores are popping up again, where there were none for a long time. They are there. But you mentioned CDs. Those are kind of coming full circle. There was a resurgence of cassette tapes a few years ago. Everything comes around, you know. Leather jackets, hip length with long, big fat lapels were horrible. You couldn't sell one you couldn't give one away in the 80s or 90s, and now they're back. You know, things always come around, it seems.
The other day when I came into your living room and I saw the Molly Hatchet album.
Oh yeah.
Sitting there. And then I was like, oh man, I should customize a van because the unbelievable artwork.
For those
on
of you
that
who
cover.
collect old classic rock, and I don't even know if our producers are old enough to remember Molly Hatchet as a band. They were kind of just a heavy rock band, but the thing that people, I think, bought their albums for a big amount, you know, also for their music as well, but largely because of their album covers. The Frank Frazetta paintings. Frank Frazetta was an incredible artist who did a lot of Conan, Savage Sword of Conan covers. He does the Warriors and Wizards stuff. And Molly Hatchet, the one album I have is the guy on the horse, the big war horse with the battle axe. And you look at that cover, you don't even care what the music's like inside. You just want to buy it for the cover. So that's a very interesting point that you bring up, Mike, is that a lot of people are drawn in by the album cover. And that's something we've lost with the digital downloads. You get a little thumbnail or something of it, but there's nothing compares to back being a kid in the 70s and taking that big album cover and looking at all the imagery. And usually they open up and reading the lyrics along with the music as you're listening to the album, lying on your stomach on the living room floor with the album cover open, reading the lyrics. That is the experience I remember, and that's what makes me collect albums today.
How about the 8-track?
The 8-track. Well, that's a little more your era, Michael. I was pretty young when those were in fashion. Did you guys have a lot of 8-tracks when you guys?
We did have the 8-track. I had a Craig 8-track in my 71 Maverick Grabber. And, you know, interesting is that we thought that was just, that it was almost magical, right?
High tech.
It was so high tech.
Space age, those 8-tracks.
And if you happen to have an 8-track player that had fast forward.
Oh, yeah, because you just used to clunk from track to track.
Yeah.
But it would come in the middle sometimes and not start from the beginning of the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something people just lived with.
Yeah. And it was, and then the cassette came along, and that was even more magical.
That changed a lot of things. And you know, when you talk about cassettes, the thing I always remember is taking cassettes you didn't like or didn't care about and recording over them off the radio. You know, you'd put it on a good rock and roll station at night and start recording all the good songs. But to do that, what did you have to do?
You had to put a little piece of tape over the,
that's right,
the little
over
window.
the little hole. And that was the companies used to just put this little square hole in the corner of the tape, which somehow inhibited the recording of it. It made the button that came down and pushed it or something go in the hole and not record. So yeah, the wise geniuses we were in the day to make mixtapes would put a piece of tape over the hole. So you record over Billy Idol or whoever you didn't like. I like Billy Idol, okay, but I mean, just whatever tape it was. It might have been your grandma's church music or something, and just, well, we're taping over this. And yeah, you used to have to cover the hole. And when they came out, the other essential tool besides a piece of tape was a pencil. You had to wind them back inside.
Yeah.
And these young producers of ours are probably staring at us like we're talking about spaceship parts or something like that. You guys familiar with the cassettes and 8-track era? Not.
We're like
Yeah, I know, but
We're not children.
hey, guys, I'm 51 years old and I barely remember 8 tracks being a thing. I used to
Wow.
play them at my grandma's house because she had some good Elvis, and I used to play the Elvis stuff. And anyway,
I've got a question here, Clint, because you are, of the two of us, you're by far a music expert, and you are music expert amongst music experts. But do you ever have any interest in finding old sheet music? And
yeah,
is that something that people collect?
it is. It
Yeah.
is, believe it or not. In fact, I know a guy that used to collect music stands extensively where they'd read the sheet music off of them. Yeah, it's definitely a genre. It's a little bit of a niche market. I don't think it's heavily doodly collected. I think what's really collectible is if you can find original penned music that where people were composing on it, but that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
Usually you find the copies that are made afterwards. But just to give my background a little bit into why I'm so into music. I mean, I grew up around rock and roll. I had young parents. So in the 70s, my dad had all the best albums and I played them, wore them right out. Like I said before, lying on the living room floor, reading the lyrics, and just loved music, and also became a musician at an early age. I used to play guitar, drums. I still play bass. I'm a bass player to this day. But I've been around the industry, played in a lot of bands over the years, done a lot of shows. Here's some trivia for you that the listeners or nobody might know about me, is that when I was 18 years old, I auditioned to be the lead guitar player of punk band DOA. And I actually
Whoa.
played with the boys there for a couple hours. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. When I was 18, I went in there.
I
And
did not
jammed
know
away
that.
with Joe Shithead and the boys, Sonny Boy Roy. I can't remember who was on drums right now, but yeah, I played with those guys for a good couple hours, wailed away in there. But I was just a kid. I didn't get the job, and I'm still like that now. I'm always shooting for the moon. I'm always aiming for higher than I can go. And I was okay. I was a decent guitar player, but I wasn't professional enough for what they wanted at that time. Because punk bands are so professional and organized.
Well, maybe if Kiss was to reform, you could take Gene Simmons' spot.
Oh, geez. Well, I don't know if I could play up to his caliber. While we're on the subject of music, we're going to come back after this little break, I think, and we're going to talk about instruments.
All right. We'll see you soon.
Oh, we're back at the Collector's Cast here with myself, Clint Wilson, Clint the Collector, and Mike Bloski. We're talking about collecting and music today. So far, we've talked a little bit about albums and tapes and 8 tracks and things. Now, Mike, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you to look that way towards that camera just to keep your peripheral vision away from these 2 bass guitars behind you. And I'm going to ask you, what you know a few brand names. You're by no means an expert on musical instruments. What kind of bass is my number 1 bass that I play? What brand?
It's not a Fender.
No, but I have a Fender here as well.
It's a Rickenbacker.
Very good. It's a Rickenbacker. And talking about collecting instruments, the earliest thing that I collected with any seriousness was bass guitars. And I collect music gear as well, amongst many things that I collect. But and I brought a couple samples today with me. Now,
can I just pop in for a second?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Clint. I said just one thing I wanted to say was that we've been buddies now for almost 20 years.
Yes.
And I was absolutely amazed when I saw how many bass guitars you had in your collection.
I've got a few.
It floored me.
I've got a few.
Yeah,
I don't have an
yeah.
exact count, but it's somewhere just over 30, I think.
It's a lot.
But, I wanted to show a couple of examples of... actually, I'm going to leave this drop off so I can keep that in front of me for the people to view. The most popular bass guitar of all time is the Fender bass guitar. Leo Fender basically invented it. There are some early examples of other electric basses, but he really, before this, everybody played the big stand-up basses, and that's where you got your bass from in rock and roll. But Leo Fender thankfully created the original Fender P bass. This is a jazz bass here. This is a 1972 or thereabouts Fender jazz bass, made in America. I had a complete refret job done on it at Basson Guitars. You know, I don't even really know the value on something like this, but right now I didn't check into it, but it's in the thousands, and it's something like investing in a commodity, almost like a precious metal. Gold is never going to go down. It's always going to, I mean, it'll have little dips, and musical instruments are the same. This bass will be worth more and more over the years. There's just no doubt about it. It's never going to get worth less. And it plays fine. It's basically a heck of an instrument. You could tour the world with this right now and play any genre really of music on it. And so why don't I play a Fender as my number one? Well, that's a good question that I just asked myself. Because I'm one of the rarer players that really enjoys a Rickenbacker bass. Now, Rickenbacker is also an American company like Fender, but they've done things a little bit differently over the years. This is my 4003 Walnut Glow. It's actually not that old. I have some old Rickenbackers from the 70s and 80s, but this is a newer model, I believe about a 2012 or so. I bought it brand new through a music store, and because Rickenbacker has the integrity to keep making their basses at only their factory in America, it takes a long time to get one. It took me about 18 months to get this bass brand new. I put it in order, and I waited and waited and waited a year and a half to get it. Why? I like the way they play, but in all honesty, it's more of a prestige thing. It's more of a cool factor, almost. I adapted my playing to play Rickenbackers because just you get no better respect than walking up onto a stage in a room with a Rick in your hands. Everybody has Fenders. For every 100 Fenders, there's 1 or 2 Ricks out there playing. And it's their rarity and their scarcity and the way the company's been run. Fender is still an American company, but you can buy American-made Fenders. You can buy Japanese Fenders. Then they have their lighter line, the Squire basses and guitars, which are, again, just a lower price market. And so much so that they don't even put their own name. It's Squire by Fender. But really, when it comes to playing a Fender, like I said, the majority of the people play them. It's kind of like driving a newer import car, a brand new Honda Civic or something. It's not super cool, but it damn well performs, and it gets you wherever you need to go without issue. That Fender will do that all day long. I'm not saying a Rickenbacker's not unreliable, but it's a little more like driving a classic car.
Just so our listeners, sorry to interrupt, but let's tell our listeners, what's the car you drive?
Well, I've got my number one hot rod's a '66 Pontiac Parisienne, and yeah, you know what?
There you have it, folks.
That's a good example, Mike, because that also, it's not like jumping in a brand new truck and everything's just perfectly comfortable. It takes a little skill, it takes a little panache to drive that car, especially because it's a big American car with a 6-speed standard transmission and a lot of horsepower, and you sort of develop a skill and a relationship with the car to be able to drive it. And it's very much the same with these Rickenbacker basses. They don't play the same as a Fender. They take a little bit of skill. They're a little finicky here and there, but when played right, they will be 10 times cooler pulling up to the light than the Honda Civic will be. Yeah. You just get that extra nod. Same with Harley Davidson's. Widely accepted that they're not the best built motorcycles in the world, but they carry that cool factor and that prestige that people just like, and that's all there is to it. You can't explain it away. People will argue all day, well, yeah, but the Honda's got this and the Honda's got that. Doesn't matter. My Harley's gets more thumbs up.
Pal, if we could just go off the guitars just for a second. I just wanted to mention this before I forget. Isn't that funny? Not funny, but yeah, maybe funny is the right word. The relationship between music and cars and music and motorcycles. Is that, it's, you know, like...
They're all tied together.
Isn't that it's
the genre. It's the cool genre.
Yeah.
It's the man cave coolness. Well, best I can describe it is I grew up watching Happy Days and the Fonz, and you know, I always wore leather jackets as a kid. always like motorcycles, always like hot cars, always like rock and roll. They all kind of go in the same. Always like pinball machines.
Yeah. Clint, how do we identify, like someone like me, I like music, but I'm not like I'm not music crazy.
You're not an aficionado.
Exactly. Now, how do I identify ZZ Top?
With the beards.
No, and what else?
Oh, the car.
The car.
Eliminator.
The
Yeah.
Eliminator.
Yes.
Yeah, the hot rod.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's a good tie in there for sure.
Oh, interesting.
Even Johnny Cash sang about a Cadillac one piece at a time.
I was going to use this as a trivia question, sort of. But I know will probably have a way better music trivia question for us in our trivia section.
Okay.
But so I'm just going to say this. I heard an interesting thing about music and cars the other day.
Okay.
There's a very, very popular, I guess he'd be a pop music guy, that Ferrari has banned him from owning a Ferrari. They will not sell him a Ferrari again.
Because he somehow sullied their image?
Yes. Yes. And who do you think it is?
He probably did. He do something
Egregious?
Egregious character-wise.
Had it painted fluorescent blue.
Oh, well, that's no good.
And apparently he had some really irresponsible speeding tickets with it in Florida.
Oh, okay. So he's in Florida, and he's a pop star. It's not the Biebs, is it?
Yes.
Justin Bieber.
It's the Bieber. Right when they got Timbits for him, and now there's a Biebs cold coffee drink at Tim Hortons.
And apparently
and now he's
Ferrari embargo is going on as well.
Banned from owning a Ferrari.
Wow.
Yes, Ferrari has banned him.
Because he painted it so garishly and drove it like an a-hole.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, you got to think, right? All of a sudden you could have, let's say, Kimi Räikkönen, former Formula One champion, driving his Ferrari down the road, red or black or maybe silver.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's quite the image they want.
No, they don't want to project that kind of thing.
Of the
especially
Biebs.
the irresponsible driving. You know?
All right. Sorry, I just had to.
No.
I didn't know if I'd told you that
Those
before.
big horsepower cars, they sell them to any kid with money, and they sometimes get a little
I think it was
wacky.
the fluorescent blue that really got them.
Yeah, well, at least it wasn't pink or something. I don't know. I'm not saying pink is worse than blue. I'm just saying the more garish. So your question about the Biebs and Ferrari basically brings us to trivia here. And I brought a musical trivia question going back to the albums. We were talking about albums earlier, and I didn't want to make this too hard. I'm a real music aficionado, and I assume people are going to know things I do, and that's not true. So I'm going to ask a layman, Michael Bloski, who has listened to rock and roll as a blue-collar sort of listener over the years. Pink Floyd. Are you a Pink Floyd fan?
Not a huge Pink Floyd fan, but
Well,
familiar with.
Growing up in your athletic career, you probably didn't have as many opportunities to indulge in certain substances and lay back and listen to the Floyd.
No.
But you are aware of a band called
I
Pink Floyd.
am aware of Pink Floyd, yes.
Okay, well, they had 3 huge albums in the 70s. One was Wish You Were Here, one was The Dark Side of the Moon, and one was Pink Floyd, The Wall. Of those 3 albums, which one was a double album?
The Wall.
Very good. Even a layman knows that. I see our producer smiling. Did you guys know that right off the bat? Okay, so that was a little bit easy. I didn't want to hit him with what's the keyboardist of Pink Floyd's name? Nobody ever knows. It's Rick Wright, and he did a lot of the singing. He passed away a few years ago. He did a lot of the singing. Everybody thinks it was David Gilmour and Roger Waters solely, but Rick Wright was one of the main vocalists of the band too. And while we're on the Wall, I remember that coming out very specifically because my dad bought a copy in Prince George, British Columbia, and I played it more than he did. He bought it to listen to it a couple times, and then when he was at work, I'd play it all the time. What year would the Wall have come out? And I'm going to give you a multiple choice. Okay. 77, 79, or 80?
I'm going to have to go with 80.
You're very close. But that's because I put all the numbers close together. It was 79. And you know, it's funny that you say that. I had to look it up because I thought it was right around 1980, about when I turned 10 years old. But it was the year before it came out in 79. Maybe my dad didn't buy it till 80. I'm not sure.
And I was thinking it was right around when I graduated. So I said 80.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I graduated.
Oh, okay. Well, the fact that you graduated in 80. He graduated in 1980, but old Ted graduated in 19 AD.
AD, yeah.
We know guys older than Mike. No, that's very good. You do know a little bit about Pink Floyd. For a blue collar, casual type listener, you do know your share of Floydism. That's excellent.
Ask me who my favorite band is.
Who is your favorite band, Mike?
Well, you'll know these guys because you know music. You'll say, "Wow, that's weird." The Sensational Alex Harvey Band.
I've heard of the Sensational Alex Harvey Band. Where do I know that name? That's on a major act. That's not a major anything. Is that
England?
Oh, it's English.
English. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to ask if it was Canadian.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Well, tell us a little. What do you know?
Well, my cousin Richard had given me their album.
Oh.
And I just really liked it.
Well,
and then
collecting.
Yeah.
Our older siblings, cousins, family members get us into collecting the same way we do into music.
Yeah.
My dad made music cool when I was young because he bought all the albums, and he was a guitar player too. He had an old hollow body electric guitar and an amp, and I just grew up around it, so it was always part of me.
My cousin Richard was like instrumental for with my brother and I, my older brother, for getting into music. As a matter of fact, took us to our first concert ever. Bachman Turner Overdrive.
Oh, nice.
At the fair in Melfort, Saskatchewan.
Well, good old Randy Bachman.
Yeah.
BTO and Fred Turner.
Yeah, taking care of business.
Bass player. Fred Turner, hell of a bass player. Coming from a bass player, I'll tell you that right now. No, that's excellent. I like hearing about that. And I don't think the Sensational Alex Harvey
Sensational Alex Harvey Band
was something that you told me before. That's a new one on me. So excellent. You'll learn something new every day. I did have one other question that I was going to go musically, and it's regarding the British invasion. And now you were a kid for that. It was a little before I was born when it came down, but there was the Big Four, they call them, in the British invasion when England came over and took over America in music. Now, I'll give you the first two because it's easy. The Beatles and the Stones. Who were number 3 and 4? Who could possibly be one of those other bands? Who could possibly be the third band? Who could possibly...
The Who?
Yes, The Who. The Who. And nobody ever gets number 4. I'm going to throw it out to our producers. Anybody? Just shake. Cream? You know, that's a darn good guess. That's another darn good guess.
The Bay City Rollers?
You're getting further away. Getting colder. No, it's the Kinks.
Oh, the Kinks.
Yeah, the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, and the Kinks were known as the Big Four of the British invasion. But I'm glad you brought up Cream because that's, you know what, this is trivia nobody will know. My dad's very first album he bought as a kid in the 60s was Cream Disraeli Gears.
Whoa.
Just before I was born. He was a teenager and he bought Cream Disraeli Gears. Also a favorite of mine being a power trio. I love trios. My favorite band for the record is Rush. And my favorite kind of combo to play is bass guitar and drums, a trio. It's always been what I like doing, even though I'm in a 4-piece now.
You know, before we go today, I just wanted to mention something about the music, the segment on music, Clint, is that we're talking about your bass guitars today, and we've talked about music and albums and different bands. But when you just sit back and think, wow, like if you're a collector and you like anything music, there is so much stuff you could collect. You could collect speakers and equipment, all types of posters.
I've collected old speakers. I've got that old curved front Wurlitzer speaker in my music room. Another thing I collect for, if you happen to have a music-themed room where I do with instruments in it, is I collect old instruments that are no good anymore as wall hangers.
Yeah.
A beat-up trombone I've got. You take an old violin that's never going to play again, screw it to the wall. It looks great up there. So old instruments
Yeah.
become, once they become useless as playable instruments, they become very useful as beautiful display items. I do that a lot myself.
Yep.
It's a good way to be.
Well, it's been a great segment.
Yes.
Awesome.
Music is collectible. Let's all remember that. Well, Mike, we're going to take one more little break, and when we come back, we're going to finish off the show with our listener question, and hopefully we'll answer somebody's query out there. We'll be right back.
See you.
Welcome back to the Collector's Cast. As always, I'm Clint Wilson. Here's Mike Bloski. We've been talking music today and collecting music, whether it be records, whether it be instruments. We didn't talk about phonographs, another very collectible thing. But I think now we're going to move on to our beloved listener question section. And Michael has a listener question all dialed up and ready to go on his phone.
Okay, from Peter Goodman in Minneapolis.
Peter, welcome.
Yes, Peter writes, "Hey guys, I'm a big music collector, and I know Clint is a musician himself. I was wondering how he balances his passion for music with his passion for collecting. I have a hard time deciding what to do next. Add to my music rig or add to my collection. Also, Mike, do you have a similar problem with a conflict of passions?"
Well, I can answer how I divide up my time, I guess, but I'd want to hear what is your similar conflict if you have one?
Well, my conflict is,
I already know it.
I like collecting boats.
Your weakness.
My weakness is collecting boats, but I also, and sometimes it's not the most politically correct thing, is I like collecting guns.
Yeah.
And the reason I like collecting guns is I like collecting vintage guns, and I like collecting new guns, and I just find that if it's something that you enjoy, but they're easy to maintain. You put them in your gun safe and you shut the door and they're locked in there. You can they're not huge and relatively inexpensive.
Well, even back to the boat thing or guns, whatever it be, I was going to say to you, whatever floats your boat, or
but yeah,
whatever gives you whatever makes you go bang.
Yeah, I'm conflicted, but usually the boats win out.
Yeah. Well, as far as me, how do I keep it all divided up? Boy, that's not an easy question to answer. My mind races at times with it's almost like it goes bing, 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 musical instruments, old signs, gas and oil, bing, bing, bing. It's going all around and around, constantly changing. And it's tough to shut off. But yeah, if I'm in a task, working or doing my job, and suddenly I see a shiny bass guitar for sale, oh, absolutely. It's like seeing a squirrel. It just distracts me instantly. It's my weakness. It's definitely one of my many weaknesses, actually.
Also, I'm going to have to add in on this for our listeners to know that Clint's band, Fusionstein,
Thank you.
also takes up a huge amount of time.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't get to be able to, play as well as they do and record a few albums without putting in the time. So he's a busy guy.
Very true. Very true. You just got to prioritize, I guess, and it's not easy when everything's a priority. But I just want to say to Peter in finality that. You know what? Just go where you most are drawn, and if it changes 5 minutes later, well, do that too. I try to do it all personally. That's my theory. Do it all. Life is short. Get it all in while you can. Do as much as you can. You only get one chance. And on that note, I think we've talked a little bit about music today. Thanks for your question, Peter. We hopefully answered it for you. If anybody else listening in has further questions, we're going to try and answer as many as we can. Where do they direct their questions, Mike?
Feedback at thecollectorscast.com.
Feedback at thecollectorscast.com. Send us your questions. We love thinking about what you ask and trying to answer it. It gets the old juices cooking. So thank you very much again, and we will be back next week.
See you soon.